What is going on? This is Michael Hacker with the Hacker Outdoors podcast. Today I'm joined with the one and only Reneil Alcordo. I've known Neil for quite some time, and I thought each of you would benefit from hearing his story about constantly challenging yourself to grow as an individual and do some cool things along the way. He calls it finding your humanity. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, leave us a comment, a like, and without further ado, I give you Neil. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Reneil Alcordo is my guest today. As you can see, he's joining us from the man cave. We got a campfire going back there. That way. How's it going, man? Thank you for joining.
Oh, it's great, man. Again, thank you for having me. I mean, the first time we did this, it was pretty good, but we got some technical difficulties, right?
Well, yeah, that was very unfortunate. I think we had a great, it was almost like a 2-hour conversation of just amazingness.
Just going at it, and just talking about some really good stuff. And I think we'll repeat it again today,
Oh, I have no doubt in my mind. We'll dive in a little bit into our relationship and how we known each other, but we have a lot of similar likes, I'd say, and a lot of crossover between what it is we do and what we're trying to accomplish in our lives. And I definitely vibe very well with you. The rest of the gang, unfortunately, could not make it today, but the goal would be is that we'll record tomorrow as well and kind of jump into some other things with them as well. So, Neil is a content creator. He is, I would say, an avid outdoorsman, an explorer, I would say. And most recently, you got into motocross, which is pretty cool, man.
Yeah. That was unexpected. I got a story for that.
Well, let's start with that if we can, because I'm intrigued to even hear about this, because I knew you said your sister was into it, and then one day you sent a video and you're like, dude, look what I bought.
Yeah. All right. Well, this goes back. Let's go back like 10 years ago, and let me give you at least my mindset with all this stuff. So I'm a physical therapist assistant, licensed in the state of New Jersey, and I see a lot of injuries, and I see a lot of accidents, and I've seen a lot of motorcycle accidents. And when I was 21, I said I'm never gonna get a motorcycle. It's just dumb. Like, people are getting hurt. I treat too many patients. I've seen broken bones. I've seen people just have bad time with recovery, and it just scared me. And I did want one, but just seeing people in injuries, it just put me off. Fast forward, right? Keeping that mentality. My sister follows in my footsteps, and she becomes a therapist also. So the moment she turned 21, she got a motorcycle. And I was livid. I was like, I don't know, 20 some higher 20s at the time. And I was like, that's stupid. You're going to get hurt, blase, blase. So she finally builds up the courage to leave the motorcycle in our house. And my parents text me, did you hear? Nikki got a bike. And I'm like, yeah, I know. So I come home and I'm talking to my dad, and the bike is in the garage. And my dad is actually intrigued. He used to ride motorcycles back in the day. So he's like, he's cool. He wants to ride it too, and he wants to put my mom on it. And I'm yelling at him. I'm giving him my peace of mind. Like, these are death traps. This is stupid. Why do we have it? And after he lets me bitch about it, he looks at me and he says, "You want to ride it? You want to get on it?" And I looked at him. I was like, "Yeah, I want to ride it."
Of course, Dad. What do you think?
We open up the garage. I sit on it. 5 minutes later, we're 10 minutes deep into looking at Harleys.
So, I love it.
So I take back my word on that, But so fast forward, I didn't think anything of it. My sister is in like this whole motorcycle thing. She does like tracks in Pennsylvania and whatnot. Always trying to invite me. And her boyfriend right now is actually a bike instructor for the tracks, and he does all that stuff, and he competes. And they just one day they were like, we're dirt biking, you're coming out. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm too old for that shit. Like, I just turned 32. That's not for me. I stay over their house in Connecticut, and they're like, you're gonna buy this motorcycle. You're gonna buy a motorcycle by the end of this week. And I just turned 32, so I would like say yeah, I'm down for it. But as you get older, you have like a layer of protection where you're like, maybe not, right? But with me, it's very fickle. So I have one layer of protection. It's as thin as paper. If you push through it, you're gonna poke through it. I'm gonna end up doing what she asked me to do. So that weekend, they're like, you say that, but once you get on it, it's different. I sat on the motorcycle, got on the dirt bike. I bought it. one layer of protection. I told them no. I sat on it. I bought it. I was like, if I don't buy the gear now, I'm not gonna buy this from you at all. So I bought my sister's old bike, and that's the way the story goes. And then I got into dirt biking, and the first day was harsh. I don't know anything about. I've never rode a motorcycle. I've never thought or cared about being on that kind of stuff. I do use like a one wheel for fun and everything, but I never thought I'd go into like an actual dirt bike or motorcycle. So it's funny. The first day we went out, it was snowing, and we had planned to go over to Pennsylvania on a track. It was like acres of just like dirt bike track, and I don't know anything, so this is all new to me. So they bring me. It's just the three of us, my sister, her boyfriend Jeff, and myself, and they bring the bikes out, and we go out. Jeff goes out into the beginning, and he comes back. He's like, "This is a shit condition. There's literally snow on the ground, and I don't know if you ever dirt biked before, but it's rocks, dude. It's like hiking. It's like It's not like fun. It's not for it's fun, but it's not for the lighthearted.
Right.
So, me, there's a bit of an adventure in me. There's a big bit of adventure in me, and I'm like, yeah, it. Like I don't know, let's just go. So I double dutch on him. I'm holding him like this. We're riding like oh my god. My little sister is like about I don't know, like 20 feet back, and mind you, Jeff is like this is his whole life. He does this,
Yeah.
So this, and I don't know how I'm supposed to hold him. So I'm hugging him. I don't know if it's appropriate. I'm just so he goes fast. I'm like, oh shit, like let me hold someone. Legs are up. It's like whatever. It's a really nice patch to go practice on. And first day was awesome, man. I kicked ass from what they said, and I was roosting people. I was like, oh, this is with snow and with wet, and we were the only people up there. Some ATVs came up. So like Jeff and Nikki, I don't know if they're blowing smoke up my ass and my head's getting big. But they're like, if this is how your first time doing dirt bike is, all is hard. When you actually dirt bike on normal circumstances, it's going to be super easy. And so I said, I agreed. I thought I was doing really great. So on the second try that we went, same condition. It was snowing again. I was clutching. I was revving. It was an interesting experience. So I'm a dirt biker now.
I have to say it's you don't hear very often about people in our age brackets, we'll say, right, over 30, taking on new hobbies, and especially when it comes to sports and action sports, right? Like I think there's something admirable there that you've gone on to take it. I've never ridden dirt bikes. I've done ATVs, four-wheelers, and the three-wheeler one time, which I did not enjoy. The four-wheelers I love. I love ATVs and quads. I would love a dirt bike. I would love to ride a dirt bike. It's one of those things. I have no interest in riding a motorcycle on the road. I know that I almost die daily here in New Jersey driving my car. So driving a motorcycle on the road is not one of those things that is high on my list. But I applaud you, man. Like that's most people don't have it in them to try new things. And I think if you're not progressing forward, we were talking about it just over an hour earlier today, and we were kind of talking about progressing and not standing still. And that's part of it is keep challenging yourself. And I see this with you constantly. You challenge yourself, you bring yourself to somewhere new, and you're saying, well, what can I do better? How can I put myself out there more and grow as a person? And, in a lot of cases, a lot of things you're doing is outdoor. I mean, you were talking about it a little bit earlier. We'll pivot a little bit and get into this. You're an avid, I'll say an avid weightlifter, right?
Yes, definitely.
We've been, in this kind of circle of people that are really into fitness for a long time. You trained me for a little bit as far as what to do and diet coaching goes. And I had never been so ripped in my entire life than when I was on your program with Relentless Aesthetics, and still to this day, I mean, like that was the only time frame that I had sustained abs was doing your project. But you were saying that you're training for a bodybuilding competition, and this just goes to speak volumes. I mean, once again, dirt biking, right? It's just a small little facet of what it is you're trying to do here, right? You're trying to live your life, experience new things, and then at the same time, you're saying to me that this, like, afternoon, hey, by the way, I'm throwing it out there. I'm going to be a bodybuilder. I'm going to go into a competition sometime in the near future. And you say, like, that doesn't normally happen. So that is very, like, very, 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 like, optimistic. And for people who are looking up to someone or trying to look up to someone, I mean, look no further than Neil. I mean, this is classic what you should be striving for as an adult if you can. Don't sit at home. Don't throw on the office for the 5 millionth time like we all want to do. Trust me, we all want to do it. Go out and try something new. And I know it's hard, but you're doing it. So tell me a little bit about this bodybuilding. And it doesn't really go into the outdoors. We did talk about fitness for the outdoors and how important it is, Brian and I, staying in shape and being ready for whatever the outdoors throws at you. But bodybuilding is a whole nother aspect of that. Why bodybuilding and why now?
Right, man. Thank you. It's to be talked about or thought about like that is like a blessing. I don't try to do things to get accolades like that. I think really a lot of the things I do is because my soul is curious, and I want and I know with anything you got to put work into things. So I just kind of hide away and do my thing, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, I got this new thing I'm doing. Bodybuilding, on top of everything that I do, it is the main thing that that speaks loudly in my heart. There's something about fitness, just in general, that I think anybody can agree with, is when you are bettering yourself in any way, it requires work. And for me, bodybuilding is just so finite. You go to the gym, you put work in, you rest, you recover, you eat, and results, right? So if you take that down to a simple, into other aspects of your life, it's the same thing. So bodybuilding has always been a core. Training has always been a core in my aspect, and it's helped me grow as an individual. 32 years old now, and in my head, I call myself a bodybuilder. I'm not I'm not a power lifter. I'm not a CrossFit guy. I'm not a sprinter. I've always thought of myself as mechanical. I'm a bodybuilder because I'm accessing myself. And that's kind of why I got into physical therapy also. But why bodybuilding? It's been with me for a long time. I think, I'll be honest with you, the original superficial thought of being a bodybuilder, natural, by the way, obviously I'm not like this like Hulk of a man. I'm my size, but as best as I can be. But the superficial reason was I wanted to look like Brad Pitt from Fight Club. I wanted to add.
I think when Brian and I talk about weightlifting and we say what is like the ideal of what it is you'd like to look like, it is Brad Pitt in Fight Club.
I don't know why. He's like universal, like guy just like, I want to look like that. And on the quest to be like that, you do everything that you think is right. Everything that the world says this is how you do it: diet hard, work out. And then you start realizing, damn, there is a deeper level to this. So in my head, if I want to look like him, I should probably follow people that are doing it better than him, so then I could overshoot my goal to look like that. But then, in actuality, I hit there, but I'm going for a higher goal. That was just my mentality. Let me shoot a little further up. I'll hit my goal easily, but I'm still working for something harder. So in order to look like Brad Pitt from Fight Club, I discovered bodybuilding. I discovered that, this is how you transform into these big boys. And, this is back in the early 2000s. So we didn't have internet like this. We didn't know that it was steroids. We didn't know that.
Wait. We didn't know there were steroids?
didn't know there were steroids. They
We knew of steroids. Well, we'll say that we didn't like. I didn't know anyone who took steroids, right? I didn't.
a lot.
It was always the joke, like when you would go into a gym in the early 2000s, right? Like at that cusp of when we started really getting into it. Even myself, it was like you go into the gyms, you look at a guy, and sometimes you joke and you say, "Oh, that guy's on steroids. There's no way he looks like that naturally, right?" Um, but Silk Road didn't exist where you could buy drugs on the internet, and things like that. But yeah, I agree with you.
We were definitely less informed. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you, but we were definitely less informed about what's really going behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And these magazines, these that I used to borrow, steal, and hoard, I would attach myself to each paragraph. Oh, superset these and do this and eat this program, and you're gonna look like that guy in the magazine. And that's complete horseshit. When you actually go through the real thing, you end up my size, your size, but you just get lean and you get fit and you get proportionate. And then when you want to push to a professional competitive league, and you're going for those prizes, the prize monies, like 50,000, 100,000, 400,000, Mr. Olympia, then those are like, the reality is now we know steroids,
Yeah.
So I don't want to do steroids, but that led me into more of like bodybuilding and mastering. And then, segueing off of this too, I could only do so many dieting techniques for myself that I needed to expand my knowledge. So I thought, let me start coaching people and I could experiment on people. Like you were one of them. So it's like, what happens if you let them squat this for this and eat this after that and this? And then your results and your data would go into my head. I'd soak it in. And then every time somebody would, or myself would go through a troubleshoot, here's an answer. Mike went through this, or Brian went through this, or Sham went through this, or Cheryl went through this, or all the clients that I've worked with, it's just now there's like this freaking database in my head. And the goal was to get that database. So eventually, like this year, when I decided to compete and to document the competition phase, I have all the answers to the problems that I probably will face. Probably.
Right.
And so that's kind of where that's been going.
Well, I think it speaks volumes once again when we start to talk about. I think you and I parallel a lot in this, and a lot of people who listen to this, I think, will as well. That there's a beauty in doing things the hard way, right? And I think that's why and this is me looking in and having known you for the better part of your life, right? Better part of my life. You choose the hard path. You like failing. You like learning from the failure to grow as an individual. And I think the bodybuilding aspect is just another piece of that. And that's why you've gone on to doing the dirt biking. And this is why you go on to do the creative ventures, which I would love to talk to you about in a moment. But like you're doing things and you're learning and growing as an individual and seeing things. And it is kind of a beautiful thing. And that's exactly what I do with bodybuilding. And you and I, you trained me to be more of a bodybuilder. I always likened myself to being a power lifter.
Yeah, when you're with me, you eventually get it towards the end after I'm done coaching you. Oh man, he's manipulating me to be a bodybuilder. I don't know, like I like volume, and eventually you figure out your shit later on, but in the beginning you're going my way.
Brian and I, we worked out together for years, and it was one of those things where eventually you're like, look at those guys over there, like they're eating everything they possibly can, and they're only lifting 3 times. Maybe we should do that. And there's no such thing as cardio.
Yeah. It's an interesting hobby, lifestyle sport. It's interesting. Used to be subcategory, now it's becoming a mainstream category, fitness, and that's actually kind of talk about like just to kind of backtrack a little bit, where you're saying like thank you for noticing a lot of my traits, my characteristics, and that's, I think hard is the best way. I feel like, and I hate to always bring it back to like our era, and I always hate to throw that around because, to be honest, this is our era. This right now is our era.
The back in my day.
Yeah, on the back, like what I was. But hard was always the right way to go. You build callus in your hand, and you're tougher. And here's the thing about bodybuilding and with failure. I love failing. It's a learning process, and if you can muster up the courage to get back up, you could stay up. You know, all that motivational stuff. Drop 6 times, get up 7. When you're in the gym and you're training, and this is exactly why I like volume training, you bring yourself to failure, and the goal is failure. At the end of the day, the goal is to fail, break down the muscles enough, not destroy, not annihilate, stimulate, and recover and come back stronger and do it again. But the goal is always to attempt some sort of mindful failure in the gym. And I think that's a beautiful thing, right? So you go out and you seek failure in order to become better. And I go to the gym now because I'm on prep mode, 3 on, 1 off, and that's a cycle. Leg push, pull, rest, leg push, pull, rest, leg push, pull, rest. And I'll decide, because I know my body, if I need to chill out a little more to let the body rest and recover. But I'm seeking failure every time. And what that does, it doesn't allow me to be pessimistic, because I have to live in that environment in my mind that, okay, I need to make sure that this muscle is completely stimulated. This muscle is completely stimulated. This muscle is completely stimulated. And the only way to do it is to go to that point of failure and maybe just pushing back a little bit, like 10% off of failure. And then to understand that and push forward, you take that to any part of your life. What does that do for you? It makes you less scared about trying. It makes you less scared about third-party subjectives, because you're worried about how you feel and how you're receiving it, and you're very connected. So to me, the gym was church. It still is. Each rep is a gospel. It's as weird as that sounds. And that just kind of spills into my life. And you can see in the characteristics, if you know me, if you're part of my inner circle like you are, my characteristics, and I'm starting to recognize it about myself. And as you get older, you have to recognize yourself a little more. That it's just gone in my life. Like you got to bring yourself to failure.
Yeah, and I have this quote in my head, and it fits kind of nicely with your thought process and my thought process. And it's by an unknown author, and it is better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in a war, or a farmer in a war, right? Like, you prepare for, plan for peace, prepare for war type of situation. It's like your body, by putting yourself through these things, you're really preparing yourself for something that putting yourself out there. And it's kind of cool to see. And you've kind of translated that now, that whole mentality that you have, into this new creative ventures that you've gotten into in probably the last 5 years or so, and more so even in the past few months. And you've done a lot of cool things. And I think one of the things we talked about on the podcast that didn't get recorded because of difficulty on my end, we talked a lot about solo travel and kind of recording the process of that. And you had some great Instagram stories over the past couple of years, and you're starting to do a lot more great things. But we talked about you going up to Lake George, and you told me this afternoon that you were going back up to Lake George, with some friends this time. But for those of you who don't know Lake George is in upstate New York, just on the outskirts of the Adirondack State Park. That's a massive wildlife area, and it's just a beautiful place. And Neil had gone up there in September, was it? I think.
Man, I think around that time. Yeah, it was cold. I'll tell you that
much. Yeah, and it was like kind of around the same time that I had gone camping up there, so similar.
It was in both our minds.
Yeah, it was on both of our minds. But see, one thing that I haven't really gotten accustomed to is traveling alone. What I do is I do a lot of hikes by myself. I do a lot of fishing trips by myself, and I say sometimes it's not about catching fish when I go fishing. I think that's a big misconception of people when most fishermen aren't searching for the the white whale. They're searching for themselves when they're out there, getting that time alone with themselves and their thoughts, and something beautiful about that. And you take it to a whole nother level where you're actually you went up to Lake George for a couple days by yourself.
Going up to Vermont. I was going up to Vermont to Burlington.
Yeah.
Lake Champlain. Yeah.
And a good old Champy. I do believe we talked about Champy a little bit too. But so tell me a little bit about what do you plan when you start to decide that you're going to do something by yourself like that? I think the thought of traveling
Really
by
interesting.
oneself is scary, right?
Uh-huh. Man, that's a great question. You're really peering into my personality here, and I love it. I love, I think the whole part of being out here and creating is you're trying to share a part of yourself, and you're hoping you hit your group, you hit your people, and you're hoping that you're talking to your people, and you forget about the rest. So I enjoy talking about my personal life and my thoughts. I mean, how many times do you get asked these great questions? And kudos
Ever.
to you, Mike, for coming up with these things. These are great questions, man. Um, so answering the question, what do I think about? I think about the human experience, and I think about like uh, Bruce Lee's quote. He was getting interviewed one time, right? And they were asking, "Oh, you're a great superstar." He's like, "I don't want to be a superstar. Why don't you call me like a super person, like the human, just a person, super, cool." And I think his biggest thing was to express yourself as honestly and as beautifully as you can as a human being, and that was kind of like I used to do martial arts, and that always kind of got into my heart. And by going out and doing these things, I ask myself, what speaks to my humanity? And I think what speaks to my humanity is adventure. I mean, I'm definitely, I'm a bit of a nut. I mean, I'm on a dirt bike at 32. I'm gonna break something, uh,
No, you're not.
you know. And what I look for is places that I can I can document creatively, that I can tell a story in my head. And I also there is this like cookie jar of memories that I like to pull out every now and then and remind myself that, man, you did that on your own. Oh, you did this and you went adventuring, and for the most part you traveled alone. And for me, I'm actually secretly a quiet guy. I'm really good at communicating myself, but I ruminate a lot. I brood a lot. I think about the significance of my life in correlation to the world, and by traveling, it expands that for me. And there's a joy. There's a joy, and I just look for places that would wow me. And it's not that I want to travel alone all the time. I love
Right.
company. I love company. It's just that I'm not trying to wait on somebody. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to go, oh, come on, man, we got to plan all this. And I'm not trying to babysit someone. I'm not trying to hold someone's hand, because there's a bit of a tough guy in me that says, well, sit on down while I walk. Like if you're not going to move with me, move aside, because I need to experience life. So my want to experience life is more than my want to wait on somebody. And it might sound mean, but I've been doing pretty good with this mentality, and it's given me a lot of opportunity. And it goes with my entrepreneurship. It goes with like, I'm gonna get a dirt bike, or I'm gonna do bodybuilding. I'm gonna compete. I'm gonna make movies. I'm gonna film. I'm gonna document. I'm gonna invest in all my other investments. Oh, can you still see me? My camera's
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. I could see.
So, I'm gonna move the way I need to move, and it builds like this character in me. But again, like I'm not looking to be alone all the time.
Right.
Having
Well,
being with the
but
right.
I think, if I can interject, you're living your story and your life as you want to live it, right? And you hit it on the head. I used to work for a travel company. It was my first job out of college, and the travel company was a travel club. And we used to get calls from people all the time saying, oh, I'm traveling alone. I'm going to Europe. Which you're not really going to be alone if you're in Rome, let's say, right? Like you'll be okay, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
um, but it was interesting to me that we had purchased the company I worked for, a women's travel organization that was really to help women travel together, women that wanted to see things that maybe their significant others didn't want to go see, and maybe they didn't have a significant other. This way they had travel companions. And it was always interesting to me to think like, why wouldn't you want to just go, if I want to do something, I'll go do it. I'm not going to wait on someone, and I'm not going to, I understand not everyone's like that, and that's why organizations like that exist, and that's kind of the beauty of that, right? Is we get to pick and choose
yeah.
what wars we fight, and that's not one of my wars, and I just never had to. I mean, anything that, like I said, that I've ever wanted to do, I pretty much have gone and done like you. or plan on doing in some way, shape, or form. But the the key point, I guess, that I was trying to poke at a little bit here was, the planning process, right? I think when you're traveling by yourself, the planning process kind of changes a little bit.
Oh,
Like I,
100%. Yeah,
yeah.
100%. Oh, well,
So
then,
we,
for me, sorry, if that's the question for me, the travel process is looking at the map and just kind of looking at what cool surroundings there are, right? And you're like, oh, what
yeah,
is? I'm just curious. Like, there's a peak here. It's next to the ocean. Let me go check that out, and you just go. You know.
yeah. See that's the cool part to me. And I think when you're by yourself, you're like, let me go see what's over that hill that over there, or let's go see this, let's go see that. And you may not get that when you're traveling with people.
Oh no.
Um,
Yeah.
which is fine once again because you have this ebb and flow and this balance that has to happen,
When
this
you're,
dichotomy.
but when you're on camp and you're there alone, it's literally on you. You know, it's what does Mike want to do? What does he or she want to do? And the thing is, no one is going to judge you because it's in here, and then you just do. So like, there's no second person saying I don't want to do that. No, it's like I want to do that, or I'm going to change my mind halfway through. You're going to go up and you're like, I want to see which. I'm going to go back to the car.
I'm
you,
hungry now, I want some chorizo, let's go.
you don't got to explain yourself to anybody. I think there's a
Right,
beauty in that. And I don't
right.
think a lot of people get that chance to, by the way.
No, I think people are scared. Some people are scared to live the life that they want to live, and it's interesting to say, like, to give yourself permission to do that. Hey, if you want to eat breakfast food for dinner and you're an adult, go ahead and do it. You know, you're you're camping and you want to have s'mores for dinner. Hey, probably not a great decision, Neil, but I won't judge you, man. Go ahead and do it. Like,
That's what I like about you too, Mike. And we talked about it early, the non-judgmental clause, I guess. When you're amongst your peers who you vibe with, but it's cool to not judge yourself.
well, that's always the hardest part, right? And I think there's something psychologically about each human being that makes us our own harshest critic, and we have to give ourselves the same kind of forgiveness and the same leeway that we would give other people to ourselves, and saying it's okay if you don't want to do something, it's okay if you want to do something, once again within reason. If you want to see the world and your partner doesn't, that's okay. You don't have to do the same things all the time. Go do it. I'm blessed, and I will say that, like, I'm 100% blessed, like that. I have Donna in my life, and that I'm able to. She
Beautiful,
fished with me, right? Like,
beautiful woman.
there's days where she's like, go, like,
You.
go explore.
Be an individual. I think recently I maybe on social media there are always memes or there's always inspirational things flying around. I think one of the things that I heard recently was that it's hard to ask one person to be everything for you. To be your best friend, your lover, your confidant, someone you joke around with, someone you could invest your future with. You everything. To have the interest that you're having and to be only focused on you. It's hard just to ask one person to do that. So I think, and I haven't been in a long-term relationship in a while, but I think it's okay to go be an individual because you shouldn't put all that onto one person,
Right.
And,
It's a big weight. I mean, when you talk about like Atlas, right? Atlas holding the weight of the world on their shoulders, it's like, you can't put your weight on someone else's shoulders 100%, right? And when you're in a relationship and you can't expect them to like everything and understand everything that you want to do. And that's fine. I mean, but you actually went out and you went up to Lake George. You went up to Burlington, Vermont by yourself, created some cool videos. We went hiking this summer, and we took you to this cool little place. I'll blow it up because everyone knows what it is, Hacklebarney State Park, right? And we went hiking, and you've done some amazing creative ventures along the way. And I think that's kind of the, be still my heart, right?
overcome you.
So is the goal for you to continue to live the outdoor life and kind of record your adventures along the way? And do you see yourself doing this for a long time?
Yes, I think as long as I have the adventurer heart, I will always want to do it. Depending on my future and how things end up, I might be restricted in some ways, but for me, the end goal is expressing my humanity, whether it's hiking or bodybuilding or filmmaking or sitting at home and looking at the wall. I think the goal is to feel at peace. I mean, you never really feel at peace, but when you feel like you have like a little piece of that, I think you try to fight for it all the time. And that's just me when I go out with you or when I go on these solo adventures. That's me hunting for peace, and it's something that I'll just always do. I don't think I'll ever stop, man. If I stop, it would have to be a big reason. Maybe a kid, but at that point you take the kid with you.
But it's you have to, right?
Yeah,
because you want them to experience the things that you didn't experience, right? Because growing up where we did and how we did, we didn't do these things.
no,
It just wasn't what we did. But you're out there and you're doing it now, and I think that's pretty freaking cool. We're coming up on about a half hour. We try and keep these pretty short. Like I said, you're going to join us with the entire gang tomorrow night. Yeah. and we'll talk a little bit more about dirt biking, and we'll talk a little bit more about
that's
I think
fun. Yeah, that's fun.
Brian wants to talk a little bit about your camping / hiking extravaganza that you guys did up in the Catskills.
That's a story. Yeah.
I remember that. I don't even know how or why I didn't go on that one, but when he told me about that,
I'm glad you did. Not because I wouldn't want you there, because it was a lot of things went wrong, but the main things went right.
well, but once again, it's the challenge.
Yeah,
is what makes it sometimes, right? Like and I get, like, there were some other things that had happened and whatnot, but like you're not. We'll talk about it a little bit tomorrow, but we'll tease it a little bit today. But Neil, this was an absolute pleasure, man. I think the world of you, and when the snow finally melts, we got about 2 feet so far here. We definitely want to have you back up for some more barbecue, because Smoker looks lonely out there, man. Need some brisket or something on it.
Yeah, man, I'm game. I'm always game, man. As long as I can do it, why not, man? I'm coming.
Heck yeah.
And tomorrow we're gonna have this little thing again, and it's gonna be fun to see the gang and like see what kind of stuff we come up with.
Yeah, we'll tomorrow will probably be not as kumbaya-ish. We'll probably be more funny.
Yeah, like rowdy.
We like a little rowdy. The entire gang together, sometimes it gets a little wild and crazy, but we appreciate everyone tuning in, and if you enjoyed what you saw, please go ahead and give Neil a follow. The links will be in the description below, and that'll be to his YouTube, his Instagram. Did you create a Facebook? Did I see that?
I don't. I'm not. I have my own personal Facebook, but I don't have like a Facebook for like whatnot. I mean, Instagram and YouTube, man. I'm not a big Facebook guy.
And your Instagram handle is Hoyzen?
Yeah, HOYZ.
Yep. And then you're on the YouTubes at Reneil Alcordo. So once again, I will link to that. Check out his latest video. He did just join YouTube, but this video that he posted is fire. I absolutely love it. And it is titled,
"What is Street Photography?"
There you go. Yeah, see, and it's not just literally him sitting down taking pictures of streets. Obviously, would be too literal.
If you think that way, maybe not click.
Maybe not click. But you might be into it. Who knows? I mean,
or click.
Or click. Yeah, it's cool. And we tried a little bit something different with the cameras. Not all the guys have high def cameras, so in this crazy world of Zoom meetings, we appreciate you dialing in from your fancy dancy camera over there. I did the same with my Sony Alpha 6500. Shout out to Sony.
I have a Canon, so shout out to Canon. We're enemies technically.
Ooh.
Naughty.
So naughty. And once again, thank you everyone for listening. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment. And if you like what you heard or want to hear anything else, leave us a message on our Anchor site, which will also be linked at below or down below. Fumbled that one a little bit there. I may or may not know where a bear den is. And you know that second time in 2 weeks, we'll talk about it. Fighting a bear, of course, hypothetically, jokingly.
But you
If
know
you
who always jokes about wanting to fight a bear? Your
no,
brother. Your brother Brian is always like, I will fight a bear for you.
I would fight a bear for you too, Neil.
You hackers have something with destroying bears.
We love bears. That's the problem. We absolutely love bears. I think there's something magical about them as creatures. My surfboard I had custom done, and it's got a nice Inuit style bear on the top of the board.
Really? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I'll take you a picture and I'll send it to you. It's awesome. Yeah. Shout out to Mike Zakelli for getting that for me. All right. So that was the Hacker Outdoors podcast with Michael Hacker, Brian